Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am your Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons, and we've got to break down the Rockies in the Big Apple, New York City against Aaron Judge and his friends. They're called the New York Yankees, but Aaron Judge and his friends. And who better to do it than our buddy from Blake Street Banter, Tyler Paddor. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. Yeah, Big Apple stuff is going on right now. So it's always an exciting series seeing the Rockies play Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and company. So, you know, we're having a good time out here.
I talked with Stephen Rice earlier this week, and I brought it up somewhere along the line, even before that, the idea that now with a kind of balanced schedule where everybody plays everybody, it's nice. We're getting used to, sure, it's only the fifth time that the Rockies have gone to Yankee Stadium, but now it becoming an every year thing, like, yeah, that's great. I think Rockies fans, I think any fan base, but Rockies fans in particular would love more Aaron Judge unless Michael Conforto and Brandon Crawford. Like, okay, one less Giants series, one more Yankee series. Yeah, that's a win-win for everyone, at least for Rockies fans.
I think we could all do. I think we want the Yankees to come to Colorado because we could all use to see a 500-foot Aaron Judge home run at Coors Field. But love seeing the rest of the league a little more seriously instead of just seeing John Boy tweets about the Yankees and stuff. It's great to be able to get that from our own perspective.
And it's cool, I think, too, when the Rockies are playing a top-notch team like the Yankees, or again, one of the best records in all of baseball. So it's not just the Yankees. Like, you might say, oh, the Cubs. The Cubs are kind of irrelevant this year, so they've lost some of their luster. They'll be coming to town next month still, and okay, cool. It'll be an interesting matchup. But because the Cubs are not front and center in the MLB world, it means the Rockies won't be. Well, right now, the Rockies are at the epicenter of the baseball world as the Yankees are battling for the AL East alongside the Baltimore Orioles. So it allows the Rockies to, be on this spotlight, right? To be on this big stage against a big team and really test themselves. And right now is a really great time with the youth movement they've got going on.
Yeah, and we see game one a little bit of a tough first go, but these are the types of games we saw early in the season. The Rockies fared very well against teams with a 500 or better record and just could not get the job done against teams with a lesser record. But, game one against the Yankees it went inverse to that. So we didn't see the full youth lineup tonight, but not exactly as you're hoping to see from a Rockies, from a production standpoint.
Yeah, Freeland doing a nice job, I think, overall, going into the seventh inning. Goes 6 2/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 runs, only 2 were earned, did walk 2, struck out 3 along the way. Home run to Giancarlo Stanton in the fourth, 384 to right center. And Judge, we'll talk about his in a little bit, but his Judge's was 388 feet. So my question to you is, should that really count for those guys? Like, if you're not hitting it over 400 feet and you're Judge and Stanton, like, yeah, you shouldn't really claim that at all, right? They should come off the board, maybe. We got to figure out a new rule, don't we?
No, and Aaron Judge, that was his 49th on the season. Like, I was not aware that he was basically pushing 50 already and that we might see 50 from him in this series. And if you've been following the Aaron Judge train this year, you've seen some people, I think it's primarily Red Sox fans, they love to bring up the expected home run stats on every single one of his home runs to say that's only gone in Yankee Stadium. That's not a real home run. So I think because of the fact that he's facing the Rockies, we can extend the logic there a little bit more too. And that's only a home run in Yankee Stadium, and it's only a home run against the Rockies. So is it really a home run? That is the question.
That's fair. That's fair. But with expected home runs means there are times in which you hit a ball that's an out in one ballpark and it should be a home run elsewhere. So at Yankees, so I don't think Baseball Savant updates like by the second. So going into Friday, his expected home run total, if he just played at Yankee Stadium, would have been 48. And by contrast, as you point out, if he just played his games at Fenway, he would only have 40. So I think that is the smallest number of any ballpark. If Aaron Judge, based on looking at where his balls have been hit, how far, launch angle, all that. The only other ballpark that's also 40 is the Oakland Coliseum, which I mean I think he would hit less than 40 just because sheer depression would just have taken over him by that point. By contrast, if all of those balls that he hit take again the same trajectory and all of those games were played at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, he would already have 59 home runs. So look, expected home runs, like they balance out, I think, in the long run.
Oh, I definitely agree. And I mean, I think the other thing you can bring up, and for us here talking Rockies, I would love to know a little bit more about how they factor in everything. The Rockies have a lot of unique factors. There's different things that are happening in every game that I think they do somehow take into account, like temperature and things like that, which do have an impact on how far a ball is going to fly. I do need to dig into expected home runs a little bit more because maybe Aaron Judge really is like a warm temperature home run merchant, but that deserves some looking into.
All right, so I'm gonna work on the quote graphic. Ty Paddor, Aaron Judge is a bust. That's pretty much what you're saying, right? Like it's
Basically,
fluky. Yeah.
If it's under 85 degrees, 80 degrees, he's not.
No, totally. I agree. And also with these expected home runs, are they factoring Brenton Doyle being in center field? Because we know he will also take home runs away too. So
extra feet.
That's it. Brenton Doyle, he giveth and he taketh away. That's just how it goes. One of the interesting stats that I heard, I was listening to some of the Yankees broadcast, which was weird not hearing John Sterling and Susan Waldman on it. It was just two other dudes. But it was interesting, getting the Yankees perspective. And it almost made me want to listen to, the entire game on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and like pull quotes and say, okay, who are they talking about here on the Rockies roster? Like there was one moment where they were talking about a guy with his brown curly hair flowing out from his helmet. And I was like, would you know that was Michael Toglia? Like, oh, okay. All right. That's interesting.
I was going to say, when you said that, I was like, oh, Brendan Rodgers, maybe, he's Mr. Flow on the Rockies. I guess Toglia really he's let it go, but I would not have expected that.
I talked with him about his hair. I probably shouldn't be acknowledging that these are some of the conversations that we have. There's some slow days that, where you just go, hey, so what's up? But we were talking about hair and I was like, all right, you're kind of growing it out. He's like, yeah, I really like it. And so his wedding, I think might be next off season, but he's got engagement photos coming up this off season. So the hair is probably coming off, in another month or two. But I told him, I was like, you might be able to negotiate that with your fiance and say, hey, that's going to make more of a pop for the wedding photos. He didn't seem like he really wants to try to send that one upstairs to get it approved by the boss.
Well, and I mean, that hair is pacing for like 25, 30 home runs. So
it's true.
You got to think about that. You have to think about the economics of the hair, and that the hair is doing wonders. Clearly, it has everything to do with the locks that are flowing there. I know you can speak to that a little bit as a fellow locks haver.
Locksmith. We like to be called locksmith.
Okay, there it is. I just learned that.
No, I just made that up. It sounds good. It sounds good. It's our special gang. Yeah. No, I was surprised to also learn that whenever Judge and Stanton both homer in the same game, they're 42-4. Which on one hand you're like, oh, okay, like there's some stats that you can cherry pick or whatever. But you also go, well, if they're both hitting home runs, maybe the pitcher's not that great, or just having a rough day, or they're getting to the bullpen. Again, in this case, I think Freeland did a really solid job. He likes getting up for those big games too. Like I think Freeland coming back off of the IL, and when it looked like, oh man, maybe he's going to need, Tommy John after, possibly being overused a little bit in 2023 when they were throwing out all those starting pitchers, you thought, this might not be good. I think he's pitched really solid. I don't know that we're ever going to see that fourth place in the NL Cy Young Award again in 2018, but I really think that, he can, lead this staff back to relevance, at least somewhat, especially, he's the one starting pitcher that is extended the longest in through the future. Marquez free agent after next year, Senzatella after that, and then both Gomber and Cal Quantrill free agents after 2025. So, I think Freeland can be that, guy that's the veteran that has the sage advice, kind of like we saw Carlos Gonzalez do that in 17-18. He wasn't that much older necessarily. He still had some good days ahead of him, but he was the veteran presence for that lineup. I think Freeland can still be that guy for this rotation in the next couple years.
Yeah, and he's someone that he does it based off of, purely his mentality to an extent. Because you think about him starting the season, he was throwing hard. He was, I think, averaging 92, 93 on his fastball. Since it has come down, and I without factoring in tonight's start, which was quality by definition, and then also just in terms of evaluating his start. But without considering that, a 3.97 ERA since coming off the IL, and that includes a somewhat rough stretch of games coming into tonight. So he has managed to really be effective despite lacking a lot of those, modern traits that you see in a pitcher. I think we saw him in years past a little bit too much of the imbalance in terms of not having enough power. And maybe this year at the beginning, too much power, that he wasn't controlling and commanding his stuff the same way that he usually does. So he brings a really unique perspective to this rotation in terms of, we know Colorado native, but also has been through every up and down that you can possibly have as a Colorado Rocky starter at Coors Field, wherever. He's been through it all.
It's true. Yeah, topped out at 93.5 miles an hour tonight on his 96th pitch of the game too. At that, so yeah, Freeland, I think he embodies everything that a starting pitcher needs to be at Coors Field. I don't know that we'll ever see a Colorado Rockies pitcher win the Cy Young Award, but Freeland is as close as it has ever come. And again, just leading a young staff, which is what it's probably going to end up being here in the next couple years, if not as soon as next season. You still got 5 veteran guys, pretty much age 30 and older, all 5 of them making about $10 million or more. That's also kind of strange to think about. That's a lot more to break down in the off season. But yeah, I think Freeland, his presence is pretty critical. Getting back to Judge, what's interesting too about him having 49 home runs here on August 23rd, that would tie a franchise record for most in Rockies history. Coincidentally enough, Todd Helton in 2001 hit 49, Larry Walker with 49 in 1997. Both of those came in a pre-Humidor Coors Field and during a certain era when home runs were, just more common. We'll sort of leave it at that. So I think that's more impressive. I think than obviously what Helton and Walker were able to do. Judge still has a lot more ways to go. So he's easily going to surpass that record, but all things being equal, well, they weren't equal. It was a lot easier, I think, to hit home runs in the late 90s, early 2000s, and at Coors Field. And yet I say that, and it was pretty balanced for both Helton and Walker. Helton had 27 at home in 2001 and 22 on the road. Larry Walker in that MVP season in 1997. Do you want to guess how many were on the road?
I'm going to guess 22.
29.
Wow.
20 at Coors Field, 29 on the road. So this was the moment, Tyler, where we would normally have to make the cause for Larry Walker or Todd Helton to be a Hall of Famer. Where you go, and folks, this is why ... We don't have to do that now. What a relief! What a weight off the chests of the entire Rocky Mountain region, where you no longer have to defend your case. I mean, you still might have to, you still might feel obligated to, but you really don't have to. These guys are in the Hall of Fame. That's the thing that broke my heart so much about the steroid era, is that in that debate with, who's better all time, Ted Williams or Barry Bonds and all of those things. At the end of the day, someone just has to go, yeah, but Barry Bonds was using performance enhancing drugs, and McGuire was. So I mean, he really doesn't hold a candle to a Reggie Jackson, and it just kills the conversation. Now, Rockies fans, entire Rocky Mountain region, the conversation isn't dead. It's alive, and it's also unnecessary because Helton, Walker, Hall of Famers, period, hard stop.
And I think a really good timing playing the Yankees. We know they have a museum in center field allocated to all. I mean, I don't know how many Hall of Famers they have. This is like a question for you almost. I want to say they have like 25 Hall of Famers. They're either from there. We'll go 36. We'll go 36.
I don't know this one. I'm gonna say it's. I have the number 45 in my head.
Okay,
it's a lot. I mean, again,
I can see that.
A cup of coffee. That's all you need. Slaughter. Like, okay, all right. He was a St. Louis Cardinal. He had a spell a little bit there with the Yankees. So I mean, Red Ruffing. Like there are guys that most people have never heard of. They're like, oh, that's a Yankee Hall of Famer. Like that. Happy Chandler, is he Hall of Famer? But yeah, like there's they've got a lot, and the Rockies have 3. Like that's the other thing too. We say like, okay, the Yankees have 45 Hall of Famers. We'll have to look that up if only we have the internet. But they've got a ton, and guys who are just there ever so briefly. That counts. Well, guess what? The Rockies have 3. Like I know, Rockies fans aren't claiming Jim Leland going around talking about, how great he was in 1999. Oh, you should have seen him smoke an entire pack of cigarette during the 7th inning stretch. Like, okay, you're probably not having that conversation, but that is a Hall of Famer. The Diamondbacks have 2. Do you know who the 2 Diamondbacks Hall of Famers are, Tyler?
I want to go. I mean, is Steve Finley in the Hall of Fame?
No. That would be a Rocky. That would be a Rocky.
That would kind of be a Rocky too.
Well, the one is obvious. Come on.
I mean, Randy Johnson is in the Hall of Fame. Like, what era am I thinking?
So, like, this guy was barely with the Diamondbacks, and I still am doubting myself. Even though I know it's true, it's still like it makes no sense.
Oh, I mean, he's not. I was thinking in my head. I was thinking Roger Clemens. He's not even a Hall of Famer.
Not Kurt. Well, yeah, not Kurt Schilling. I'll give you a hint, and it's not a great hint because wait till you hear it. This guy's brother played for the Rockies, and that doesn't help because he was around for about 2 months, and no one remembers him as a Rocky. Although he is one of only 2 catchers to ever be on the Hall of Fame ballot for the Rockies.
Oh my gosh!
And his father played in the majors, so he's a junior. He was the MVP of the 1995 All-Star game.
This is, I mean, yeah,
I'm not going to come to it. So the brother is Sandy Alomar Jr. Yeah, he was a Rocky, believe it or not.
Gosh.
And Roberto Alomar is a Diamondback Hall of Famer.
That's nuts. I would never in a million years. Like, you gave me the list of Hall of Famers without showing me team affiliations. Never would have guessed Alomar.
So a quick Google search turns up. Are you ready? 64 players, managers, and executives. Like, that's crazy. It's wild. Well, and again, it helps when you were around in 1900. So Wee Willie Keeler, hit them where they ain't. I mean, he was a Yankee for a minute. I think he was with the Yankees when they were the New York Highlanders. They weren't even the Yankees yet. And they had to change their name. Or they didn't have to, but they basically changed their name because Highlanders is way too damn long to print as a headline in a newspaper. So they would the writers would over time just abbreviate it to Yanks. And then boom, they officially changed it to Yankees because nicknames were very fluid at the time. But anyway, let's talk about the Colorado Rockies here for a little bit. I was thinking about this and I didn't look it up, but this is another one of those fun what if kind of things. How many pitchers have given up a home run to both Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge? Now, it might be a lot, but the one that comes to my mind because of tonight is Kyle Freeland.
Yeah. Wait, how many active? Wait, did you say Rockies pitchers, or we're just thinking generally?
In general, yeah. I don't know if any other Rockies pitchers have. I mean, again, you'd have to go back and look. Again, Judge has probably only played against the Yankees, 3 times?
Yeah, probably around there.
Ohtani a little bit more.
I guess because of that they ran the AL for 6-7 years together. I'm gonna guess that probably 35 pitchers have given up a home run to each.
I mean, they hit so many on their own. Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
cutting it
that's a good number. That might
low.
be right. Yeah, that might be right. I'm sure there's a decent amount of carryover, but that's one a post podcast I'll have to look up and kill myself over trying to find the answer to like who else. I know Ohtani hit a leadoff home run in the last time the Dodgers were in town in June for the day game. I just can't remember exactly who was pitching there. So you just have to look that up. So Freeland in a special class, I guess, so to speak. Didn't get a ton of run support. That's common on the road. When you're playing at sea level. Carlos Rodon, really solid tonight. Rockies only get 4 hits. Tovar, Tolia, Jones, Beck. You like that? You get it from the 4 young guys. Tovar, a rare walk. And then even more rare than that, Brendan Rodgers starts the game as a DH. Then Aaron Schunk gets lifted for a pinch hitter, Charlie Blackmon. And then Rodgers goes out to play second base. Rockies lose their DH. So Kyle Freeland is the number 9 hitter. I bet you when he looked up at the scoreboard or saw it on his iPad, whatever, was like, I want to hit in this game. Like, do I have to go 8 innings? When am I going to come up? That spot never came back up in the order again. But I wonder if he was kind of thinking it halfway in the back of his head. Man, that would be pretty badass to have a plate appearance at Yankee Stadium. Has any pitcher ever had a plate appearance for the Rockies at Yankee Stadium? No way.
No, not a chance.
No way. Not a chance.
I mean, I'll always remember it's so vivid. Kyle Freeland hitting a home run at Great American Ballpark. I think that was his first and maybe only, although it's hard to imagine he didn't have one at Coors Field. I'll always remember him coming up kind of early in his career, hitting that home run at GABP and thinking, let's get this guy at the plate more often. We need Kyle Freeland at bats. He never really, came through in that same regard, kind of like a Mike Hampton with that high, run production as a pitcher. But I want to see more Kyle Freeland at bats before his career is said and done.
Yeah. No, I don't know if we want to see him pinch running, but pinch hitting, I think we might be okay. I don't know if the Rockies will ever have another Hamptani. I really want to get that name trending. Mike Hampton was the original Shohei Ohtani. Hamptani, come on. Yeah.
I mean, it still blows my mind anytime someone brings up those offensive numbers. Like, that's why the Rockies signed him. If we're being honest here, that's why the Rockies signed him.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Freeland is he's a baller, man. There's no doubt about it. So that was an interesting having no DH there for a little bit. Again, didn't come up. And then we saw Jeff Criswell coming in the 7th, scoreless 8th inning. So 1 1/3 innings pitched, struck out 2. I don't know about you, Tyler, but I sort of think, I mean, look, to the Criswell family, don't hate me for what I'm about to say here. It's not that I'm not going to be complimentary. It's just we got to look at the reality of it. So I don't want to take anything away from Jeff Criswell and his 1 1/3 scoreless innings of work, but in my opinion, it is easier to throw 1.1 innings pitched at Yankee Stadium against the New York Yankees than it is to pitch in the Pacific Coast League. So great job in the majors for doing that against the Yanks. But that's easier than pitching in the Pacific Coast League, isn't it? This tongue in cheek. This is tongue in cheek, but also at the same time, like, it is easier in a way, right?
I like legitimate. Obviously, the Yankee factor is a little different, but I do agree generally because I think Criswell. I'm curious. Someone, either one of us after the show, can come up with this. I want to say he's given up like 40 home runs the last 2 seasons in the PCL. Like, it's been crazy how many home runs Jeff Criswell has given up down there. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that 3 or 4 of those ballparks are as hitter-friendly as any in professional baseball. So that is a gauntlet to get through. He's a little bit more of a fly ball pitcher. You wonder how that always will play as a Rocky. But getting out of the PCL and taking that stuff, you're going to get a whole new perspective on Jeff Criswell pitching in a more pitcher-friendly, neutral environment. So Yeah, he had it rough down there.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe you got something, right? Now that you're seeing him at sea level, like, okay, maybe this guy can absolutely be a thing. And I know that in the previous month, he had like a sub 3 ERA out of the bullpen. So this is his first year as a reliever too. That keep that in mind. So there is a bit of an adjustment period. It's not just, oh, your job's easier now. You're going one inning at a time. Well, no, again, in the PCL, you're probably more likely going 2 innings, and you might be going on back-to-back days. So you have to adjust to that. So in all seriousness, yeah, great job by Jeff Criswell doing it against a professional baseball team in the New York Yankees. That's nothing to shake your nose at. DJ LeMahieu, I hope he's able to shake his nose a little bit. He got hit by a ball, I think, right during batting practice. Was kind of a late scratch. He was supposed to start at first base.
Yeah, I mean, that was someone like that, very dear old friend, as we like to say on Rocky's Twitter. Just seeing that wasn't just a hit in the face and hop off the field, maybe get scratched. It sounded a little bit more like some extended attention was given on the field. So hopefully DJ, I'd love to see him this series, but obviously that's not the biggest focus right now. So all our thoughts are with DJ, that things are good in the short term, good in the long term. That was not fun to see.
No, yeah. I hope it has somewhat of a happy ending to what we saw with Jay Cave, right? A guy that, after his batting practice accident, comes back and becomes what I've been told, man of the people. I've been told that is his official nickname. No.
I mean, definitely not the people's champ. I mean, in some ways, he is the champion of the people. I think that's the better way to put it. Not the
Okay.
people's champ, but the champion of the people. But his official name is man of the people. He's subscribed to it. Several other Rockies have subscribed to it. He is the man of the people. There's no other way. We all saw what he did early in the season. That is what came to mind, and that is what has stuck. So
Hopefully DJ LM has that kind of a
yeah,
rebound. Now
we
before yeah, now before this game, another reliever taking the forefront here. Luis Peralta, lefty, has his contract selected. Herman Marquez goes to the 60-day IL to create spot on the 40-man roster, and then Tanner Gordon gets optioned down to AAA. Luis Peralta, man, kind of coming out of nowhere. I mean, definitely coming out of nowhere, but very quickly it seemed like, hey, wait a minute, his timeline is getting moved up and moved up and moved up. So, this time last week it was would be less of a shock, but going back just a couple weeks ago certainly would have been a shock, as A, he wasn't even on the roster, and B, had yet to even pitch in AA. So I know you like this acquisition. What can you tell us about Luis Peralta, a guy who ended up coming over from the Pittsburgh Pirates in that Jalen Beeks trade?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, I mean, lefty for Rockies fans. You think about a left-handed arm, that is a welcome sight. But the big thing with him, and what really is his selling point, is getting some deception, getting a little bit of a lower slot, lower launch from that left side. He's also sitting in the mid 90s, and we're going to have to see how that velocity plays at the big leagues. I would expect a 94, 95 mile an hour fastball coming from this low launch slot that can really play, and that's what a lot of teams in the big leagues are chasing. Is getting a little bit more of the, I'm releasing from down here, and that ball is traveling upwards in some ways. So Luis Peralta and that fastball, I think, will really get a lot of. It'll be effective at the big league level, and then he also throws a pretty nasty breaking ball. That's why he has struck out 75 batters in 47 and 2/3 innings with a .94 ERA this season, because that fastball is really hard to see, and that breaking ball is, you're sitting fastball, you can't hit that breaking ball. So he has a chance to be very, very good for the Rockies. But yeah, this was quicker than expected.
I think Jaden Hill's injury, which we still don't know the full extent of that, definitely gave some opportunities to guys. Criswell now getting the call up, and now Peralta, that probably should have gone or could have gone to Jaden Hill before the injury, as he's one of those players that has to be added to the 40-man roster, or else he'll be exposed to the Rule 5 draft at this year's winter meetings down in Dallas. So yeah, so it's one door closes for one player, it opens for another. So we should end up seeing Luis Peralta, younger brother of Freddie Peralta, and possibly not related at all to former Yankee Wandy Peralta. Although I don't know if I know maybe you've got the family tree there and you can better inform me, Tyler.
I mean, I think the hope is, and no disrespect to Wandy Peralta, because he had some good moments with the Yankees, but I think that regardless of relation, Luis is looking to surpass Wandy at the big league level in terms of that production and the reputation. Both lefties.
There you go. All right, Tyler, let's get ourselves into a little on this day in history before we discuss a little minor league action, discuss a little 2025 MLB draft action at that. I've got a mega document. I've got this huge spreadsheet. I love my spreadsheets. And sometimes I forget about it and then I look back and I go, oh, I got to get up to date. And so going to throw a couple things at you and then we'll just kind of see where it takes us. So I totally missed out on this and I had some video ready and I'm the kind of guy like the next day, I'm not going to say on this date or on this day yesterday. I missed the opportunity. I'm going to have to do it next year. So August 22nd of next year, I can't wait to put out a lot more officially on the day of. It will, in fact, next year it'll be the 25th anniversary of a certain bench clearing incident. And that's not why this is famous, but there's a bench clearing incident, Atlanta, Colorado. John Wasden throws at Andres Galarraga, member of the Atlanta Braves, charges the mound. Game gets crazy. Wasden gets ejected. A bunch of people get ejected. The game goes 12 innings. Rockies end up using 9 pitchers. And then in the 12th inning, they resort to having to use catcher Brent Mayne. August 22nd, the year 2000. Now, the first batter Brent Mayne faces, Tom Glavine as a pinch hitter. So you've got a catcher pitching facing Tom Glavine, who's hitting, and also was drafted by the LA Kings in the NHL. So that makes it a little more interesting. On top of that, he gets a ground out there, gets a fly out from Walt Weiss, another former Rocky. Then a little traffic. Rafael Furcal singles. There's a wild pitch. He walks Andrew Jones, and then he gets Chipper Jones to ground out. Brent Mayne gets the win and retires 2 Hall of Famers in the process on that day on August 22nd, the year 2000. That's wild.
I just want to, pick up the phone, call Netflix. We need a baseball shorts series. Like, obviously, movies are difficult to make, but like, I would love to see a short story created live action of that, recreate that moment, because there's so many of those crazy, nuanced, one of a kind moments in baseball that all of us as big time fans, we would love to see those. Like, Moneyball is one of the better movies for creating some true baseball history and putting it on the big screen. There's so many more and so many really specific moments. I love how you just told that. I had no idea. So
You're inspiring me here. So since you said 30 for 30, I might just have to start this and not make a list. I'm the kind of guy where like I would need the full list before I started, but maybe it's more exciting just doing it and then trying to figure it out along the way. But I'll call it 500 in 5. So 5-minute little mini documentaries. I got to figure out 500 of them. Are they just going to be Rockies documentaries? I mean, maybe. The Brent Mayne one is certainly a good one. That'll naturally be called the main event. That one's an easy one. Maybe that's the pilot to see if we get picked up. Let's see if the Rockies Insider YouTube channel picks up my own project. I really hope it does. I feel like I've got some sway with management. But I mean, you can go to Garvin Alston. He only won 1 game in the majors. It was with the Rockies. And what did Trinidad Hubbard do in center field with the final out? He threw it into the stands. So now every time they get together, Trent Hubbard has to buy Garvin Alston's dinner. So like, boom. All right. There's episode 2. Like, all right, it's coming together, Tyler. I appreciate you inspiring this. We'll see if it actually happens and gets off the ground. I don't know.
And I mean, we could have a whole season about 2007. So there's a little bit of a gold mine to tap into there.
Could be. And if it's only 5 minutes, I mean,
yeah,
we'll figure it out. We'll make. So one of the other reasons why I wanted to bring this up and say, all right, let's dip back a couple days ago, is because the Rockies this season, they're one of only 4 teams to not use a position player. Do you realize that? Like, oh yeah, that's right. We didn't see Trejo. Oh yeah, Brian Servant is playing baseball in another country with the Blue Jays, and Sam Hilliard, he did pitch in college, so I think he might be the first designated guy to go out there. I'm not sure. We talked about this at one point in the season. Then again, the thing that I think managers don't want is a guy who volunteers to pitch. Like, oh hey, I used to pitch, and no, you are not. You're out. We're gonna give somebody else that opportunity. So Hilliard's not that kind of guy, but I think you could go that route. Aaron Schunk was a closer at the University of Georgia. So I'm thinking maybe he fits that bill a little bit more. But look, you got a righty in Schunk, you got to go lefty in Sam Hilliard. So if you're trying to preserve that 14-run lead in the top of the ninth against the Dodgers in the final game of the season, you've got your options there. Also, timestamp this right now that I just said they beat the Dodgers by 14 runs and they use a position player. Wow, that would be crazy if I get this right. Tyler, I'm relying on you to remember that.
Oh, I mean, that's kind of locked in. I mean, the next time I see the Rockies beating the Dodgers by 14 runs, my brain will be going 100 miles an hour, and I will come back to this.
Very
Regardless
true.
of what happens in the game, I will be thinking about this.
A's, Pirates, Padres. What a weird grouping of teams. And you throw the Rockies in with that. That's a weird grouping. Those are the four teams that have not used a position player yet. This one is kind of bittersweet to me. I don't know if other people feel like it this way. It's going to just be sweet at first, and then unfortunately, I'm going to take it to maybe a dark place. But the Rockies on August 24th, 2001, they defeat the Mets 10-0. Jason Jennings, major league debut, you know it, 5-hit shutout. He hits a home run, 3 base hits, becomes the first pitcher since 1900 to hurl a shutout and hit a home run in his first big league game. Like, that is epic. And then goes out and wins the Rookie of the Year the next year as a pitcher. As a pitcher.
I mean, the fact that that had been done previously, baseball is crazy. The early 20th century had a bunch of weird things going on, but the fact that that had happened before is kind of nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the guy's name. I would love to know what kind of weird ass, tungsten arm O'Doyle.
Yeah,
like, is that who did it?
Oh. There must have been some kind of metal in his name, like an aluminum, a titanium, like that had to have been part of whoever that was. Their name had to include a hard metal.
Lead Belly Armstrong.
Yeah, there we go.
I found out. I confirmed it. That was who actually did it with the Cincinnati Mudcaps. No, so the reason why to me it's like kind of bittersweet is because whenever I see those highlights, it's of Shea Stadium, New York City, 2001. Only a couple weeks before 9/11, the whole world shuts down. The first game is back at Shea Stadium, right? And Piazza hits the walk-off home run. So like, that's what I kind of think about, when I see highlights of that is like, man, that was just that time. No other time. There's nothing else that I can probably make any connections to that. Even like personal events of like, oh man, I was going through this hard time this year or whatever it was. It's just that because it's 9/11. So I don't know. That's kind of a strange one. Maybe I'm the only person who kind of looks at it that way, but
I mean, I had no idea that the timeline for that was so close. We all know about the Piazza walk-off. It's another, and certainly not the most important thing in mind thinking about that. Another one of those moments, and I know there has to be a 30 for 30 about that, but another one of those moments where baseball just has a way of really striking the heartstrings and just creating these beautiful moments that are art. I think it is art. So I'm glad you brought that up. It has kind of a somber message to it, but also in some ways it's just so beautiful that things like that can happen in baseball. Crazy things are happening in the world, but in some ways there's connections that are drawn there. The Piazza thing, that's one of the biggest connections between sports and the world that have really ever happened. So that's what we live for, really. It's a game. It's bigger than the game at the same time.
Yeah, you got George W. Bush, firing a strike there at Yankee Stadium, like so badass, right? And and we're coming up here next year on the 5-year anniversary of the pandemic, and we think about baseball coming back. And sure, there are no fans in the stands, but hey, no, these games count. These games are considered regular season, and it gives you a little bit of distraction, allows you to get through a day to the next day. And obviously that was the case post 9/11. So that is certainly the beauty of baseball that gets taken for granted, that some people might go, oh, there's just too many of them. There's not too many things in the world where too many is actually a bad thing, right? Like, okay, if you can't manage that, that's on you. But baseball being there every day is definitely can be consoling, especially during some really rough times. August 24th, 2021. So about 3 years ago, Zach Veen hits for the cycle for Low A Fresno. And I bring him up because he just got promoted to AAA. And now you got him and Yankee Fernandez both in the outfield in Albuquerque together. And, the Rockies have somewhat of a good problem. And a good problem is better than a bad problem. But it is a good problem it is a problem from the aspect that you got three young dudes right now in that Rockies outfield. You also have Charlie Condon, a guy that could move his way up really quickly. And now you've got Zach Veen and Yankee Fernandez, and really no place for either of them. There's also Benny Montgomery out there. There's Sterling Thompson. So it's a problem, but it's a good problem.
Yeah, and you look at the current Rockies outfield, and we never like to put guys on the chopping block. But we saw with Elias Diaz already, and that's something that after the trade deadline was sort of in everyone's mind. Like the Rockies are likely going to be making some tough calls, and have tough conversations with their guys. The Rockies have some outfielders that might initiate another one of those tough decisions. And Zach Veen, I don't know that he's going to make a big league debut this year, but this move indicates there's a chance. Like it is no longer that zero chance. He was on the IL so much this year. Like maybe Zach Veen gets that call, and the Rockies do have a couple outfielders of the left-handed variety that you wouldn't think of as no-brainers for the 2025 roster. So tough problem right now. You might be able to alleviate that in some ways.
Yeah, and as you said, Jones is the only lefty of that young big league group with Doyle and Beck both from the right side. And it sort of reminds me of the situation that the Diamondbacks had last year in 2023, where at the end of 2022, Jake McCarthy just goes off and he had a big series in Colorado. And I really took notice of him at that point. And then, you still have Alec Thomas in center field, Corbin Carroll, who ends up winning the Rookie of the Year award in 2023 in right, Lourdes Gurriel in left. And they sort of had too many young outfielders. And okay, that was a good problem in 2023. And then in 2024, it kind of wasn't a problem because Alec Thomas just, takes a step back, somewhat of a sophomore slump. He goes down to the minors. And then you've got Jake McCarthy there stepping in, filling in that role. And you go, hey, we kind of haven't missed a beat in our outfield because we've got Jake McCarthy. And so, does that happen for the Rockies? Who does that happen to, where either they're injured or they take a step back? But maybe you go, all right, if that does happen, we've got a fourth outfielder that can very easily become a number 3, then a number 2 outfielder in Zach Veen or Yankee Fernandez, both left-handed hitters there. So you've got some options, not a ton of playing time. This really becomes interesting when you say, well, is Charlie Blackmon coming back next year? And even if he isn't, how much playing time is Chris Bryant going to get at DH? Because you can still get those guys those at bats. We saw it in the final game in DC where Brenton Doyle stays in the lineup. He's hitting DH. Okay, great. Now Beck can play center field. You're fine. You don't miss too much of a step there. You allow yourself to get some more at bats. So it's a good problem for sure, and maybe it does sort itself out.
Yeah, that outfield is one of the better places to have that problem because flexibility is inherent. You think about shortstop right now for the Rockies, it's so much harder in the middle infield to make those versatility calls. You have the outfield, you have the DH spot. For certain guys, you might be able to throw them at first base here and there. I don't think that should be counted on, but it's a lot easier to rotate those guys around. So you might think of there being, especially come 2026, so many outfielders on the roster, but you can rotate through some of those guys. And I'm sure there's going to be change in some way in terms of those young players that are here. We might, see a trade. We might see injuries, all types of different things. But it is more of a good problem to have than something that has to be solved.
And I think the reputation the Rockies can get is being fearful of trading players away because, oh, what if they have a certain amount of success elsewhere, and oh, that's going to make us look bad. Well, when you've got three or four really good young outfielders already, if that guy goes off and has success, so be it. You're probably bringing back a really nice chip. So, I don't know who that becomes, the trade guy that goes out onto the market. If you're dealing Jones, probably not Doyle. Is it Beck? Is it going to be Veen or Yanquiel Fernandez? Like, any number of those four guys could go to really improve your overall roster, and you make a risky trade like that. And I think we might see Veen debut this year. I probably wouldn't before he came off the IL, before that promotion, like you said, kind of maybe is an indicator of that. He's another one of those guys that has to be added to the 40-man ahead of the Rule 5 draft this winter. So you might as well allow him to make that debut. So gives him something to work on and to look forward to going into big league camp next February. So I think we could end up seeing that. So it's a unique problem too, because you usually don't have just an entire set of players in one spot, where if you've got two or three shortstops, you can move them around to second and third, and that's fine. Where the outfield is, I don't know, is just kind of like the outfield. But it's a unique problem, and I think the Rockies have that same unique problem with their starting pitching with so many of these young guys. And again, you can't have enough starting pitching.
Yeah.
Carson Palmquist gets his first AAA win on Thursday night. 5 innings pitched. The line is okay. Gives up 1 run, 3 hits, 4 walks. You don't like to see. Strikes out 3. And you also have Seth Halverson with a 9-pitch save, his first one. And again, you've got 2 more guys that you might see, but I don't know that we'll see Halverson because of Luis Peralta getting that promotion. I don't know how many other relievers you could stack on that 40-man roster. But I certainly think Carson Palmquist is a guy that might get one start in here late in the year.
And it's tough with a lot of those guys. And Palmquist, he'll be Rule 5 eligible after next season. So between him and Halverson, it's a really good just lesson in terms of the Rockies are not going to force those guys onto the 40-man roster, especially you're seeing someone like Luis Peralta. Before them selecting his contract today, was like 99%. They're going to select his contract. That's why they traded for him. Guys like Palmquist and Halverson, they've got time to really, have those guys force the issue, and they're starting to. Palmquist is I think he needs to really figure out how his lower powered stuff is going to play in a more difficult environment against better players. Halverson, I think he could go and face MLB guys, but it comes down to how many bullpen arms can you add at one time and in 1 year. He's not going to be Rule 5 eligible for, 2 more years after the 2027 season, I believe. So it's kind of tough with making these decisions. There's no rush to do it. And have you seen enough to say we're holding this guy back? It's tough.
Big shout out to River Matthew. What's going on, buddy? Good problem. Yeah, good problems are better than bad problems. Appreciate all the support from River Matthew Cod there. Yeah, it's that's so much of the important math that goes into this, of like, hey, this guy deserves a shot, this guy deserves a shot. Well, shots aren't created equally. Like, hey, who's the best? Let's look at them neck and neck. Well, this guy, we could end up losing him in the Rule 5 draft, so he's just going to get that opportunity first, because the other guy could end up getting one later on, right? And I think you saw that a little bit with Evan Justice, getting added to the 40-man roster last year, and he's been banged up just a little bit, so I don't know that that's worked out terribly well. But the guys that sort of need to be on the roster, they get preferential treatment versus the guys that maybe fans would like to see, or the numbers suggest, hey, this guy could be a little bit more ready. Your clock, that Rule 5 draft, like the 40-man spot, like that's a clock that needs to be respected and understood to figure out, hey, this guy's going to get a shot over that guy. Player that's going to get a shot on Monday. I don't know if you heard this announcement, but Rockies just missing out. They're just short. But Dylan Cruz is going to make his debut against the Yankees for the Washington Nationals, the number 2 pick last year out of LSU. And last year, at the time when Cruz got drafted, I had to ask Brendan Rodgers about. I had to pick his brain because Dylan Cruz, LSU, but did go to Lake Mary High School, same as Brendan Rodgers. And he said, this dude's going to be up within the next year. So a little bit outside that window, but even still, another good young player getting an opportunity really quickly. And the more the industry changes, the more the Rockies change, and the better off that ends up being for the Rockies.
Yeah, and Dylan Cruz, different player, but makes me think of Charlie Condon. And I would put a similar timeline. I think that's been one of the biggest questions and conversational topics this year is when does Charlie Condon make his debut? Dylan Cruz of a very similar player quality. We're now looking a year plus, like a little bit over a year. Dylan Cruz is now making his debut. So I would really keep that in mind with Charlie Condon. Dylan Cruz was not rushed like Wyatt Langford, and that's not to say bad things happened with Wyatt Langford, but time's going to be taken with these guys. So Charlie Condon, Dylan Cruz, they kind of belong in the same conversation in a lot of ways. So I'm stoked to see someone like Dylan Cruz, though. It's not every day that you get to see players with his talent level make their debut. And throwing out another guy who's familiar in the Rocky system, Jared Candy, who much lesser known guy. He got to play summer ball with Dylan Cruz and became, pretty close with him. And he described him as just someone who was definitely going to be ready for this moment the second that it was there. I mean, he probably would have been ready last year, but it takes time.
It does. Yeah, if you're a premier SEC, even ACC bat, like your timeline is really quick. I mean, shoot, you see how far Jordan Beck ended up falling to the Rockies in the supplemental round, and yet he was still able to debut in under 2 years and did not have the same resume as a Charlie Condon. So yet another outfielder there, that good problem that you see. I do want to talk about the 2025 MLB draft, and I'm going to have to also bring this topic up on the Sunday post-game show with Kevin Henry. That's, I think, an 11:05 game. A lot of fun topics going on there, like, hey, what would a Rockies old-timers day look like? I'm kind of kicking myself. I'll say this. I'm kind of kicking myself that I'm not on this road trip, that I didn't choose to go out in this one. I did not realize the Rockies were going to Yankee Stadium for Old Timers Day. Like Jeter, Mariano, Pettit, Joe Girardi, famed Marlins manager Tyler, Joe Girardi. Like, show some respect, dude. But anyway, we'll get into a lot of that on Sunday. So I'll ask the same question of Kevin Henry, but Anthony Volpe versus Ezequiel Tovar. Who would you rather have going forward? Whose career would you have? Is there any list that you would maybe take, or any scenario where you would go with a Volpe, or is it just neck and neck and kind of go with the guy that brought you to the dance? Because for me, it's Tovar.
I mean, it's tough to say anything other than that, and a lot of that has to do with the pressure factors being a Rockies centric podcast here. I mean, Anthony Volpe, I think they are so similar, and I'm very curious to see their careers unfold together. Like a lot of the same issues and a lot of the same strengths. Volpe seems to have figured out that kind of plate discipline side of things a little bit more, and that makes me lean like maybe Volpe will be that, like he'll have a lot more progression in the next few years because he's a little bit more of a disciplined hitter. But Ezequiel Tovar, in terms of the power and just how much of like a lightning rod he can be, that part of him is so much more fun.
Yeah, he's got the extension too, obviously helping him out a little bit. I don't know how much that's part of the math. I just pulled up real quick head-to-head stats comparison. Baseball Reference version of wins above replacement does have Volpe ahead of Tovar, but the only other stats that Volpe is actually higher in is stolen bases, 47-15, and on base percentage, 293 to 289. Everything else favors Ezequiel Tovar. They both had exactly 286 games going into today, and so they still have the same amount, but 1,200 plate appearances, more for Tovar, hitting higher in that lineup, right? We know how the Yankees lineup is stacked. 35 home runs to 32 homers for Volpe, 130 RBI to only 107 for Volpe, 259 batting average to 229. Tovar also with the slugging percentage of 426 versus 386. OPS 716 versus 679. And then Tovar also has the higher OPS plus, 88 to 86. But you know what? Anthony Volpe also has better, if you will, than Ezekiel Tovar. The thing that Tovar doesn't have that Volpe does have, a Gold Glove award. I don't know if that
Yeah,
changes this
yeah.
year. I don't
I
know.
mean, that's sort of going to be the fun thing to watch because I think that's the most similar part of their games. Who's going to end up with more of those in their career?
It's true. Yeah, that will be a really good debate going forward. I know that last January, one of the things that Dick Monfort talked about with the handful of us that were there up in Greeley was talking about how, hey, Rockies prospects don't get enough love, and I'm not in that camp. Like I'll get on my soapbox for a second. Prospect pundits, their job is to be right on these guys. They don't need to hold grudges against any team and say, oh, this guy's not as good because he's from that team. Their job is to be the first one that said, hey, no, I think this guy is going to be something. Or, hey, I think this guy is a little bit better than others are giving him credit. And so when you look across the board, when everybody usually thinks about the same way about the Rockies, it's because that's just what they think. There is no bias. That being said, I think there can be some truth as far as fans are concerned when it comes to saying, hey, man, Anthony Volpe, what? He's from Jersey? Jeter was his dude growing up, and now he's going to be playing shortstop on opening day? Yeah, there's going to be a buzz nationally amongst fans and media, and kind of how the guy is covered. But prospect pundits, they got Tovar and Volpe kind of neck and neck. So Monfort was, of course, basically just saying like, hey, Rockies prospects don't get as much love. Why is this Volpe guy, getting all this attention? So this will be an interesting debate. It might not be Bobby Witt Jr. versus Gunnar Henderson, but it's still a fun, head to head conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll just say there's a reason that Anthony Volpe, at least according to MLB.com, was the number one prospect in baseball for a time. And you think about, yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. I don't think Gunnar Henderson was ever the number one prospect, but Jackson Holliday, that is such an elite group to be a part of, a number one prospect in baseball by at least some outlets. Anthony Volpe has that. So I think that does mean something. It doesn't mean everything, but it means something.
It does. All right. So the Rockies are pretty much, no, not pretty much. They are. So I'm still getting used to the new CBA and the draft lottery and all these things. And, last year, what they had was it like 15% chance or something like that to get the first overall pick? And now they've got a 22.45% chance. All right, whatever. Give them more ping pong balls. So they're going to be drafting really high. They might even get the number one overall pick. So no team has a higher percentage than them. It's the same as the Miami Marlins at 22.45. So, the Rockies could be in the same boat, sitting there with the third overall pick, maybe the second, maybe the first overall in the 2025 MLB draft. We'll find out this December when they do the draft lottery. But Tyler, I know you're big on the prospects, and you do your homework for guys that are on the come up to know who's up next, right? Who are going to be the next superstars in our sport? So, who are some of the names other than Ethan Holiday? No, who are some of the names for the 2025 MLB draft? Because there's at least one that's just the name is exciting. You don't even have to know anything about him. His name is exciting.
Yeah, I mean that right now. A lot of people would have him 1-1, and who knows? Like draft season changes so much. Like the current draft year, there's a lot of kind of misinformed opinions that are created going into the draft year. I don't think that's the case with Ethan Holiday. Like whatever opinions of him have been formed, I think are very accurate, and it's hard to imagine he doesn't go in the top 3 next year. But I have 8 guys kind of circled. That can always change. I didn't necessarily think even Charlie Condon was going to be a top 3 prospect going into last year. But this is a strong class at the top, and it's hard to evaluate beyond that. But the Rockies don't need to really think beyond that right now. It's going to be another top 3, at worst, probably a top 4 pick. Especially knock on wood, it's hard to imagine they end up with anything lower than the number 4 pick. The top of this draft class is going to be strong, led by Ethan Holiday, a couple other prep guys. The one to me that might be most exciting is Seth Hernandez. He's a prep right-handed pitcher from California. He's already touched 100 in game, pretty clean mechanics. Not, we all think about pitch, pint, and hard throwing. Seth Hernandez, a really clean arm with power and two really good breaking balls. So I think that's someone Rockies fans have to keep in mind. The college group, though, is also really strong. Jace Laviolette, a lot of college baseball fans know him. I mean, basically every college baseball fan knows him. He was the leader of that A&M Texas A&M team that had a top. I don't know, where did Braden Montgomery go? I think he went like 12th to the Red Sox. But Jace Laviolette was a better player for Texas A&M this year, and now he has another year to play before being draft eligible. So he's the current college favorite to go number one overall alongside Ethan Holiday. But Seth Hernandez, I also want to mention Xavier Nyans, a prep third baseman from Washington. Those are kind of the guys getting the most hype right now. But there's a few other prep college guys beyond them that could also be in the mix.
Yeah, I know Ryan Spielbergs would probably be interested in Tyler Bremner since he's from UC Santa Barbara. So, go Gauchos there. But yeah, you're right. So many things can change. I mean, think about where Chase Dollander was one of those guys that, hey, could he be the number one overall pick? Messed with his slider, ends up falling to the Rockies there at 9. And then Charlie Condon, you go, hey, best bat in the country. I know, actually, I think it was, last offseason, we kind of had a similar conversation, and you highlighted a bunch of guys. And I know Travis Bazzana he was a guy. All right, he ended up staying 1-1. JJ Weatherholt, goes a little bit further down, and I forget who the third guy was, but you're right. So many things can change. I mean, what's not going to change is these guys being dudes and being first round, picks, and having an entire fan base really following behind a guy and saying, hey man, I think he can really develop into something. But where the chips fall, like a lot of that changes, and Chase Burns going number 2 to the Reds is a lot about, hey, we can save some money here, maybe just a little bit. And so there becomes that bonus pool money, that the equation of part of it. But if you've got the best player in front of you, well, the Rockies already showed a certain proclivity to go ahead and say, we're going to take the best player that's available to us. We're going to do that. So if they've got the first overall pick, do you think it'll be still Ethan Holiday come next July?
I think if his name was Ethan Jones, we'll just go with that. I don't think he would be I think the Rockies are going to be more inclined to take a safer college player next year. I mean, I think that's been their mold for a long time. But the fact that it is Ethan Holiday, and yes, the profile there is so good. But the fact that it is Ethan Holiday, if they had the number one pick, I have a hard time seeing them pass on him, almost regardless of what happens between now and next July. He seems like he would be that guy.
If Ethan Holiday has a bad showing in the showcase circuit, he's still Ethan Holiday, so he'll probably go 1. If he was Ethan Schmuckers and he has a bad showcase circuit, you go, could Schmuckers fall to the Angels at number 8? Maybe, but we're talking about Ethan Holiday and not Ethan Schmuckers. So I think you make a great point, Tyler. I'm rephrasing it a little bit, but I think we're on the same page, right?
Yeah, I mean, my question now is it grape jelly or is it strawberry jelly with Schmuckers? But absolutely, it comes down to pedigree is so important now in the draft. So
yeah, the Rockies, I think they've gotten a taste for that second generation blood where, hey, Kyle Caros kind of worked out really nice. And hey, Luis Peralta, who are you related to? Oh, not Wandy? Doesn't matter. You're related to another big league pitcher. Okay, we're going to acquire you. So, like, yeah, there's, I think, something to that. Certainly a guy who knows the clubhouse and just knows how to carry themselves. Like that guy having them around is obviously a great example. So even in and of that of itself is providing a lot of value throughout the minors and showing how to go about, playing the game the right way, quote unquote, has a lot of value. And when you're just an otherworldly talent like an Ethan Holiday, that also helps too.
And you think about what his brother has done, went number 1 overall, so was not an underdog, but some people think Ethan Holiday could be even better than Jackson Holiday. So if you've seen where Jackson has gone, you know where Ethan could go at the very least.
I think Jackson Schmuckers also would have gone 1-1 based on his senior season in Stillwater. So that's just me. But we'll see what happens with Ethan Holiday and or Ethan Schmuckers next year.
We're gonna have to keep that running a little bit throughout the year, and get the people's take on Schmuckers. peanut butter and grape or strawberry.
That's it. Stay tuned to the Rockies Insider. Find out about Houston Smuckers all of 2025. All right, let's get out of here, buddy. Go ahead and plug away. You do an amazing job with Blake Street Banner, and great writer, great homework doer, which, believe it or not everybody does that. Not everybody does their homework or studies the right things, but you absolutely do. So go ahead and plug away. Everybody should be checking out and doing anything that Tyler says here for the next minute.
I mean, my own Twitter is at Ty Paddor, Paddor. I don't tweet a lot on my personal account, BSB at Blake Street Banter. That's where I don't even tweet a lot there, but we are doing a lot on the prospect side of things. I mean, the Rockies right now, not a lot of amazing things there. The farm system is the brighter area, and I got to give a shout out to Aaron McBride. I know you are someone who's had him on here before. Aaron McBride doing the most, keeping Blake Street Banner going, sharing a lot of stories of the minor league players. That's what we love to do, and put the spotlight on those guys. So Blake Street Banner, Aaron is carrying the torch there. A lot of fun. So if you're not already on the train, would recommend you hop on.
Yeah, make sure you're subscribing to the Blake Street Banner podcast, the Blake Street Banner channel on YouTube. They may or may not be going live from the Spokane Indians bullpen and just having a rotating cast of relievers coming on. I don't know. You're going to have to just subscribe to the channel and kind of wait and find out here. So only a couple of weeks left for their season before they got bullpen banter. Are you guys working on something like that? You can have that idea if you want it.
I mean, the funny thing is, something like that is always just like in the works. I don't usually know about those things until it's like I get a text 2 days before. Hey, we've got this going on. Can you make it? And it's like, oh my, I can't miss that for the world. So something like that's bound to pop up.
Yeah, maybe you can live stream with the guy that is Otto, the mascot for Spokane, and from inside the Stoot. Like, I mean, that's gonna be really close up and personal to their face. But make sure you are subscribed to the Rockies Insider. Now in the top 200. I think we're at 180 here on the day of recording. So appreciate all the love and support. Rockies Insider podcast, Rockies Insider channel on YouTube. Follow on the social medias. Rockies_insider at Patrick D. Lyons. Tyler, appreciate the momentum you gave me, but as they say, your momentum is only as good as your next podcast. They've been saying that forever because podcasts have been around for forever. So thanks for that momentum. I will talk to you tomorrow.